Batman Incorporated number 11 is what we're going to start with, though. Written by Ed Brisson, art by John Tim, Sergio Acuna, Nikola Cizmesija, Rex Locus, and Clayton Coles. I'm sure he would disagree, but I think that's how you pronounce it 100%. And then in the cover here, which we don't often mention the covers, you have the Beiji, the Batman of China, saying Batman Incorporated is done. I think he's pretending he is Mr. DC. Because people had said earlier in the week, oh my God, even last week, I think that Batman Incorporated is canceled. There was no solicit for, I think it was October. And I thought, well, sometimes they skip some things there. Well, when this comes out and I'm reading through it and at the end, to be concluded, I'm like, yeah, I don't think that just means the story. I think the book is done.
Besides the idea of it being canceled and stuff like that, and where we are currently in the story, when I first looked at this cover for Batman Incorporated 11, for some reason, just looked past the Beiji, the Batman of China of it all, and just thought this was actually Bruce Wayne Batman saying Batman Incorporated. And I thought we were going to have this great revelation where Batman comes in to shut shit down. And then I looked a little closer because, I can't see very well.
You can't see.
Oh, it's the Batman of China. Never mind.
Well, one of the things about this book, and that's a good way to segue into some of this, the idea that this book tried, it seemed, to make Ghostmaker a more viable character by making him more like a Batman, even though Ghostmaker has been fighting all along, and a lot of people were worried that by the end of this, Ghostmaker would say, well, you know what, I think I will go with Batman's way, but that doesn't help the character. That goes against the reason why we like him. And some people even got the epiphany this week in our Slack chat that said, you know what, Ghostmaker is Mark Millar's nemesis, which is the over-the-top, rootin' tootin' shootin' Batman, and it's pretty cool. So I'm actually kind of glad that it looks like he's sticking to his guns, Eric.
Well, hopefully.
You don't get that much of him in this issue. And
that's one of the biggest problems with Batman Incorporated as a whole. But the idea of Ghostmaker, though, he's almost like a weird Bizarro version because you have Batman, right? Like the pure Dark Knight detective kind of thing. And then you have the counter version of him, which is the Wraith. The evil Batman who was created on the same night that his parents were killed by the police.
That Wraith, right?
Wraith is just like the evil Batman. And it's so cool. Like you never get that character anymore. Now, this is a weird Bizarro version where it's like Wraith, but he's still a good guy, but he goes to the extremes like Wraith does, almost to the point of being a criminal, but he's just willing to get the job done, Punisher style to get it done. But he's as accomplished as Batman. He's a really cool character where I just want to get that whole Ghostmaker versus Batman because the ideals that they share are so utterly different in how they take on crime. And it's just, once we had that initial Ghostmaker thing done, and I pushed it out of the way, it's like, all right, Batman and Ghostmaker, they're bros, are hanging out, and then Batman's away while Ghostmaker does Batman Incorporated stuff. And you just don't have that real synergy between the characters anymore. Like, how far is Ghostmaker willing to go, and how far is Batman willing to go to stop him from his way of doing things?
Well, and remember when he first came, and you alluded to it, when he first showed up, he was a villain. He showed up, Batman knew him from the past, he was over the top, and he came in and said, listen, Gotham is a cesspool. I know that we made a pact. It's funny. The pact that Bruce Wayne, not a wheeler and dealer, right? He says, listen, Gotham's mine. Ghostmaker goes, oh, well, I guess the rest of the world's mine then. I mean, it really isn't that really great a deal for Bruce Wayne.
You say that, but according to sales, and who cares about what? Everything Gotham-oriented is where the money's at.
Then that is true, but you say that, Eric, and why I also like the idea when Ghostmaker first showed up, Batman didn't have much money. His money was gone, and Ghostmaker shows up, and it was a really cool thing to kind of make it, okay, Bruce needs him now. He ends up having all of these layers
What's finance here?
And they became bros, but it's kind of a shame, because with that all, we're heading towards Gotham War. Batman versus Selina. If things would have went different, little slow burn, I think that the real big story, as you're saying, could have been a Gotham War, and it could have been what originally should have happened, where you have Ghostmaker versus Batman. And I think that would have been more realistic. That would have been maybe something really cool for a Gotham War. But
as much as I want it, when you have, if you say we swap out, Catwoman for Ghostmaker.
Now it's too late. But if we didn't start the way, right?
No, I'm saying originally, let's say it was always supposed to be Ghostmaker versus Batman for the Gotham War. Like, I want a Batman versus Ghostmaker because I want to see who's going to come out on top, even though Batman's Batman, obviously. But when you have this, I think DC would be afraid to pull the trigger on this because if you did it realistically, you would have so many people in Batman's Rogues Gallery dead, and you just can't bring everybody back.
But that was the thing. That was what I was going to say, and I'm glad you said it. The idea where maybe, Condiment King, he gets a little slice in that. But you would have where you have Selina, and we haven't read the story, obviously. That'll be next month. But with Ghostmaker, especially Ghostmaker when he first showed up, if this would have been, again, a slow burn, we didn't really know. Him doing this, it does give you that edge. It does give you that kind of mystery of he might end up killing the Penguin. He might kill the Riddler. He might kill... And you don't really get that in my mind with Selina.
Well, even when you had it, though, in Batman Incorporated, because right now Ghostmaker is just, pretty much Batman Light here leading the team, because even when they had their mission in Gotham against Professor Pig, and all of those villains were, chained up right in front of Ghostmaker, I'm like, you got to start slicing and dicing to really prove yourself. But since you're following Batman's orders, you can't do anything. Your hands are literally tied in the comic.
Yeah, so a lot of people who... Actually, and I'm not saying there's a ton of Ghostmaker fans, but really just to tell everybody, two are right
action
here.
Figure.
Me and you like Ghostmaker enough because we really like the bro Bruce
that was so
and
much
Ghostmaker
fun.
As well. We
hanging out in the garage, pumping iron,
oh
playing
my God,
foosball.
It was so funny. And we had a lot of fun with it. We liked the character. You still need a little more, but I think that we're at that point where you realize you can't make him a good guy because that goes against his character. He doesn't play well with others, all this stuff.
He's the necessary evil.
And I don't mind that at the end of this series he goes off. He'll probably disappear and, I'll get you sometime or I'll do my thing. But at least he tried, and we see it's not really working at this point. But I really thought we were going to get more Ghostmaker and Clown Hunter. We ended up getting Clown Hunter a bit with Phantom 1, which is now a character that's on Stormwatch. You have gotten some things out of it. But I do think that this book overall, it just hasn't been able to grab people because it's kind of a mess. There's a lot of characters.
The idea of the mess and a lot of the characters is, when you go into the book, I don't think there's going to be a lot of people that sit there like, I love everything in Batman Incorporated, or I love everything in Joker Incorporated. The problem is you're going to realistically, in my mind at least, you're going to focus on a handful of characters, maybe just one or two. And when you have that, your focus is so spread with the amount of characters, the ones you want to see, you then move on to deal with stuff that you don't really care about, and it just drags the story on, and you're just hoping to the point where you get back to Dusty Bronco and Raven Red, and that's where I stand.
Dusty Bronco and Raven Red are okay, but I kind of want Man of Bats. He's there, he's hurt, but Raven Red himself, he's just angry. He's angry. His dad's near death, he says again. Dusty Bronco's kind of funny, sounds like a porn star, but in all of this, when it all comes down to it, I still don't think I'm getting enough Raven Red that when this is done, I expect to ever see him again.
Well, it's weird about Raven Red because the way that Man of Bats, I actually thought he died when Dusty Bronco shot him, and I actually kind of wish it would, because it would be that kind of evolution of the character like Knight and Squire had, where Knight died and Squire became Knight, and eventually like Raven Red, if his father died, he would become the Man of Bats. And you'd have that new, kind of legacy, new evolution of the character. And with Man of Bats being alive, it's just, is Raven Red going to cross the line or isn't he?
I like the idea, say, in the past, Condor being on the Birds of Prey. Maybe Raven Red could be.
Nobody remembers Condor.
Something like that. Oh, Condor was the worst. Condor was always trying to weasel in and try to date Black Canary. It was constant, and she wasn't going for it. But when we go through this issue, again, the real big thing is going to be Raven Red and Dusty Bronco, but overall you're going to jump back and forth. And the other things going on, Peiji and his sister. His sister is the Joker of China, Alpaca. And boy, it really would have been better served if you had Ghostmaker and El Gaucho stay away. You could have had some good character work because we didn't really get it. And if you aren't aware, these were characters from the new Superman book by Jean Luen Yang. And they're interesting, but you never really got enough. And then in here, all it is you better kill her. No, I won't. You better kill her. And you don't really get
Joker's
any
trying to use you, Alpaca. Don't let him. The hell with you. I'm not being used by anybody. You guys are just fools. That's all you get. When the thing is, you get Dusty Bronco's origin story in this, which I do appreciate because for some reason this rodeo clown Joker,
Bronco.
I do enjoy. And I think his origin story is pretty freaking awesome, actually. But you could have used this time to actually flesh out some of the characters that have been in the DCU, like the Alpaca, to see her origin story to become the Joker of China, and maybe we'll for the next issue and final issue. But here, Dusty Bronco's, revelation, revelation to us about the idea of why he shot the Man of Bats and why he wants to take out Raven Red. He was a rodeo clown like his father before him and his father before him. The thing is, dealing with all of those bulls all the time. Your ass gets hurt, and his ass needed some pain medication. You don't make too much money, Rodeo Clown, so he had to get his ass on the streets to get some drugs. But Man of Bats, all he saw was not a man in pain, but just a druggie, and beat the ever-loving shit out of him to the point where he was in the hospital for 6 months, couldn't walk, couldn't move, half his bones were broken. I'm like, yes, you went excessive Man of Bats, and you made your villain to the point where when he finally got back out, he became Dusty Bronco and was looking for revenge, and he shot him down. I'm like, that made it very personal, and I actually like the idea where you have these vigilantes in any kind of comic book media of superheroes where they are like, these over-the-top street brawlers who just take people out. You see it with Batman all the time, to the point where this guy was just trying to get by and not be in pain, and he was putting more pain than he's ever had in his life through everything he did with Rodeo Clown, and he's wants revenge. And I'm like, I dig it the most.
He's like Brett Favre. You have to go to the painkiller, Serg. He couldn't take it. You got to keep that, game streak going. The thing is, that's funny that they he's there, and you do have Dusty Bronco say, we've met before. But the funny play is, I believe that guy, I call him Mr. Hoodie, bandana head drug dealer, he's probably coming back for revenge on Raven Red, because it looks like Raven Red beats the living crap out of him as well. And again, if you had more time even, you could have expanded this, because I don't love to think that Man of Bats is a guy who's just going to beat the shit out of a guy buying some Percocet. I would have liked to expand it a bit where maybe he's trying to brag and show off in front of his son.
Man of Bats is not as good as we thought he was.
But yeah, it really does make him look like a real piece of crap because he ends up stopping this, pretty small scale. Hey, do you have any painkillers, right? Yeah. I need some. Seriously. I better go check on my wife. Man of Bats might be in town.
Just beating the shit out of her.
Yes, right. I'm like, oh my goodness. But while that's going on, and you do get that origin, you do get that classic play of a Batman character creating his own Joker. Okay, it works. It actually works. The problem I have at this point is we have one more issue. I'm like, well, at least you slipped in the Dusty Bronco origin, but there's many more things that
besides for Alpaca, Dusty Bronco is the standout Joker of Joker Incorporated in my mind.
Standout though, because it's been a focus. I think that maybe there were too many, and I even said because in this
Charles
issue,
DeGaulle could be the one who could have stood out if you got a little bit more panel
I actually
play.
Was thinking of the names again and Die Laughing. They're pretty funny. And
what's he up to? What's Die Laughing up to in this whole bit?
He bailed. Remember, he gave the thing and he said he left and went under.
Is he just going to be the linchpin in the final issue to bring down the Joker because what the Joker did to him? Is our Batman Incorporated going to be so inept with what they're actually doing? Is Die Laughing going to have to save the day?
Maybe. It's weird because remember, he figured out how to get rid of the whole tracker chip deal and the blow up your brain thing. And he gave it, and that's where we get Knight and Grey Wolf. They're experimenting on it in one of the most boring segments that this book has ever had.
They do nothing.
I mean, they're just sitting there.
All I find out is that Knight and Squire need to figure out how to deactivate this chip. So when the Joker activates everybody's chip around the world, so they will be exploding in a half an hour unless the heroes kill them, that chip explodes. They're like, oh my God, what are we going to do now? We don't have any time left. We don't have any other chips. We don't have any replacement parts. This is where Grey Wolf's like, look, Knight, you don't understand. Where I come from, we didn't have shit. We just had World War II technology. We didn't have replacements, so we had to figure out what we had around us to remake things. I'm like, look, I understand you want to brag about how good you are technically, but just remake it. We have a half an hour. You're standing around and talking around a broken ship. Do something, please.
Seriously, just as an aside, not many people know what I'm saying. This reminds me of me and you when we'd work together. We're doing shit, and at the end you're like, did it work? Nope, we'll do it again. I'm like, I don't need that. I don't need to feel like I'm watching somebody do actual work. Yeah, there's a half hour left. This is you gotta get going.
Everybody else at least is doing interesting things with the related Joker to a degree, but just standing in a basement with a chip that looks like it's in a broken aquarium, what is this part of the book?
Well, it's contained. They don't want to. That's the problem. They were sent to get Die Laughing. Die Laughing skedaddled. They have nothing to do. So you're stuck with that. And that, again, shows me that there's too many characters in this book. There's too many things going on. And that was a problem that I had from the very beginning. The beginning, and if you hadn't read it, the beginning was pretty much Ghostmaker, and people were killing his mentors, and so you ended up getting so many mentors, people killing mentors, Batman Incorporated. At least this kind of settled down a little, but it's still too many.
Even the idea of people killing, because that's all we've had this book. You've had Batman Incorporated with all the many members. You've had the people killing Ghostmaker's mentors who were made into a Phantom One Incorporated to be other Lex Luthor Batman Incorporated characters that we never saw before. So you had all of those. And we finally got out of that. Had 2 issues with Professor Pig, which were pretty decent, except for how easily things got resolved by the end. And then it's back onto a Joker Incorporated with a shit ton of characters. I'm like, you're spreading this story too damn thin.
And it's going to go 12 issues. And in this, if you know El Gaucho coming in, good for you. But if you don't, you're going to get El Gaucho. I thought I was going to be the leader. I don't like you. And then kind of teams up even more with Ghostmaker. And then they just kind of are at odds. And they continue to be. And then you get Beiji, the Batman of China. He's there with Alpaca. And that's part of a bigger part of this as well. Because in the background, Joker's like, yeah, I think this book's getting canceled next.
Activate all the chips.
I'm pressing a button. And really all this does is push the window up a half hour. She says, you used to have an hour. Now you got a half hour. Let's go, bitches. And they got to figure out what to do.
And what to do is Ghostmaker's just yelling, you got to kill every joke you see. No, we're not going to do that. Batman would never do that. And it's just Batman. And even the Alpaca part becomes a weird situation because you have Batman China Beiji saying, I'm not going to let you kill my sister. Well, fuck you. I'm going to kill your sister. And Alpaca's saying, look, I got 132 hostages. If you guys don't fight to the death in front of me, I'm going to kill all of them. So
and they're going to be pushed off a roof, right?
And I'm telling you, I have no idea how Ghostmaker being Ghostmaker, with everything that he is, besides for trying to follow Batman's rules here, does not kill Beiji by the end to save as many people as he can, because that's who he is.
He might leave him for dead, but he's not dead. Or you end up where they fight, and then I'm just going with the idea of Die Laughing shows up everywhere. He comes swooping in, hey, I'll stop that. Or you can end up, because we haven't had, well, then again, I was going to say Clown Hunter, but he's off with Raven Red. Like, they're all scattered so much. Maybe Phantom One comes in at one point.
You have the Batman of Japan and Clown Hunter just telling Raven Red, you can't kill him, guy. You can't do it. I'm going to do it.
And
the thing is, it's the best part.
Yeah, and so the only thing that I can think of, but the problem is the way it's been set up, the Joker means business. He wants to ruin Batman Incorporated. He wants them to go against Batman's one rule so that they, get dissed by Batman and he's not around. The only thing that I could think of is at the end, you just have Joker where it's the classic, hey, I was just joking. Because they'll commit to something, but we've already seen people die. It's just all over the place. And yeah, by the end, you're like, all right, what's going on here? And you're right. At one point, you get Charles de Gaulle and he's like, all right. The Cirque de la Mort is on.
That's Circus of Death, Jim.
I don't need you with your Circus of Death here with the Night Runners. Let's get back to Raven Red.
With all that stuff going on, you have this section coming with Charles de Gaulle and Night Runner coming in, the Batman of France, to jump in, and it just becomes this over-the-top action scene where Night Runner just takes out Charles de Gaulle, but it's never really finished. It's just a weird place to put another scene in that interrupts what you're currently worried about at that point. But who's focused on Night Runner at this point in time? For some reason, I'm still worried about Wingman and what could Dark Ranger more.
At that point, I'm even trying to figure out how Alpaca's Super Soaker shooting lasers or something. I don't even know what's happening with that thing. So she's going with that, but you end up having El Gaucho kind of take that. Says, hey, if you don't move, I'm going to end up killing Alpaca. Of course, that's not going to go well with Beiji. All that going down, but the hostages start getting pushed off this roof. I'm like, this is way too much going on to actually resolve in one issue. You then have Knight and Grey Wolf doing their science-y stuff for no reason. But then you go back to, like you said, the big thing of Dusty Bronco and Raven Red. And I love the idea that Dusty Bronco at the one point says, hey, listen, let's just settle this. Here you go. Here's a gun. And I'm like, don't trust that gun. That guy just gave it to you. And he doesn't. He's like, I'd rather wring the life out of
fist
you.
To fist.
He actually says, this gun's impersonal. I actually want to watch the life leave your eyes. He's insane, and he won't stop. And yeah, they're going to end up fighting, and at the end, he is choking him out. It looks like Dusty Bronco's in big trouble.
And apparently Dusty Bronco is the worst shot ever, because he still wants to have his gun during the fight, and he misses every shot at Raven Red right in front of him.
No, it looks like he's doing the dance, sucker. He's used to doing that,
dance?
right?
Doing the dance?
Dance, sucker. He starts shooting.
He's footloosing around?
At least it's not ghost guns. But you end up where, he's in trouble. It's like that idea of bringing fists to a gunfight. Well, I guess the fists went out this time. But remember, on the side, they also, no, it's not. They said the other two, they're releasing the hostage. Raven Red said, I think that he's just going to get tackled by Clown Hunter or something to stop this. We'll have to see.
No, Raven Red.
poor Clown Hunter. We're in the middle of a Joker Incorporated. The kid hasn't even been able to do his thing, really. He's just
Seriously,
kind of been on the side. Yeah, really. So he's just there, but the art's pretty good.
No, I enjoyed the art a lot.
A bunch of artists, too, so it changes with each of the things, but each one has its own look, cool. But it's a mess. Yeah, they do. It's really good on a tablet. It's a mess. I mean, I'm with you. I'm there for Raven Red, Dusty Bronco, but the other stuff is just like, come on, let's do something. We still have to find Guy laughing because Joker doesn't know where he is either. He's all upset.
Like, even the thing, though, like, I find the Raven Red and Dusty Bronco part the most important in the story because you get the Dusty Bronco origin story. And, like, it feels like it has the most stuff to it that's going on in the Joker Incorporated story. But when you actually even have, like, Alpaca, like, this should feel like the biggest part, Alpaca, the Batman of China, because of what we read in the new Superman series. And you have Ghostmaker, who's the head of this whole thing, and we know who Ghostmaker is and how hard he's fighting to try to play by Batman's rules. This should be what feels like the focus of the story, and even that just feels like a little lackluster because Ghostmaker's hands feel tied the entire time, even though he's the one still saying, we need to kill everybody, but we're not killing anybody.
And they're just standing around, and then in that first arc, while it was a lot of a mess, there was a lot of things. Grey Wolf was pretty cool. New character, you developed that. But now all Grey Wolf does from that point on now is pretty much, and I know he's not from Russia, but it's just a standard of, in Russia, car drive you. Like, everything he says is, in my country, we have to do this, and that, it's just constant, over and over. I'm like,
I don't remember what country Grey Wolf is from, but it's definitely Eastern European.
It is Eastern European, so he's fancy, because that's when European is that.
That's fancy? That's fancy?
I think so. But what would you give this?
Ultimately, I think the art is great throughout this issue, and I care so much about the Raven Red and Dusty Bronco for some reason. But I do, and that at least, elevates the book a little higher than it should for the mess of the way the story is being told by jumping scene to scene to scene, where it's not really, just halting any momentum and progression that you feel you're getting in anything because you're just jumping here and there. And even the Knight Runner stuff doesn't feel like it did anything for this except for fill out page space. So I'm giving it a 6 out of 10.
I'll give it a 6 out of 10 as well. The art's really good. Now, what happened if Phantom 1 swoops in and saves the day and then's like, I kind of like the cut of your jib, Grey Wolf and Raven Red. You're on Stormwatch now. Would you be excited?
He's not in charge of that. Mr. Bones is in charge.
Yeah, Mr. Bones just goes with it, Eric. He's like, it sounds cool. We need some recruiting going on.
I'll put him on the team, but I ain't let him lead shit, make any big decisions.
Well, maybe not. I just thought I'd get you excited because it's Ed Brisson's book, but I guess you're not going to go with that. You don't think that Mr. Bones, you think he'd have a bone to pick with them?
I like the characters we have in Stormwatch right now, even the Wildstorm one, which I don't care about that much. They're still more important to me than a Grey Wolf.
Maybe, but I mean, they don't have a lot of guys on the team. It's kind of a skeleton crew.
Oh.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.